The color white has existed since 1522. But due to the American crime drama based in New Mexico featuring fictional man Walter White, any chemistry-related phenomenon discussed on the global systematic internet is immediately associated with aforementioned Walter White. Therefore, the following activities presented in this audio-visual documentation can be referred to as a Breaking Bad reference. In other words, I shall be doing ridiculous amounts of chemistry and transmutating. Previously in this series, I built the electric blast furnace and various other crucial machines for industrialization, leading to the creation of aluminum, which will be needed for stage 2 of this game. Medium voltage. And to commence forth towards high voltage, I would have to go Dow DuPont Corporation mode and create chemicals for the factory, which includes polyethylene and pulsating polymer clay. And to create these I would need a new type of machine, known as chemical reactors, which consumed fluids and items to make fluids and items. Plus it needs energy, meaning I would need two things: better energy generators and better energy cables, which would require resources pulled from the depths of the Nether, aka glowstone. So here is the plan. Due to the realisticness of Greg Tech, the Nether is no longer accessible by a trans-dimensional portal, but by eating cakes that had a side effect of orthogonal multiversal travel. This cake needed realistic dough, realistic buckets, realistic obsidian, and realistic netherrack made realistically. By that I mean that gravel must be crushed and mixed with lava and crushed. The resultant artificial red dust is sprinkled upon the dough and obsidian to create delicious nether cake. Upon consuming a slice, I passed out and found myself surrounded by delicious exclusive nether resources to consume, which included realistic nether quartz and realistic glowstone. The realistic glowstone is mixed with realistic redstone and gold to create energetic alloy, a material suitable for transferring medium voltage, abbreviated as MV. Anyways, here is a further explanation of the realistic Greg Tech energy system. Currently I had 3 generators feeding into 2 different power grids, both of which only support low voltage electricity, abbreviated as LV. MV machinery would have to be put in a separate MV power grid due to the fact that MV machines will not function properly with only low voltage, and pumping medium voltage into a low voltage machine will lead to explosion sound effect. So these 2 groups of machines will have to be separated. But I lied the whole time. The energetic alloy will not be spent on wires for now, because they will be repurposed for a top-secret government project known as deep mob learning. Here's why. Due to all the spending of resources for all the new machines, there is a crisis due to metals constantly running out. But this can be amended with the mob simulation chamber and loot fabricator, which I made with the realistic energetic alloy. After plugging them into somewhere, I would need some polymer pulsating clay to begin the mob simulation. So I created a comical amount of this exotic clay by using clay stolen from the automatic clay creator. I would also need a model made from circuits and a mob drop. Since I used zombie loot, I obtained a zombie model. By inserting it into the chamber, it commences some realistic hacking and transforms the clay into discolored matter, with a chance of getting pristine zombie matter byproduct, which can be realized into reality in the loot fabricator to get common zombie-themed metals. But why stop there? Different entity modules meant different pristine matter to fabricate different resources I needed, which made mining rather useless for eternity. And I began a quest to capitalize on this. I took the discolored matter, which can be combined with realistic netherrack to get red discolored essence to be combined with more shiny squares to get the blaze model, which could potentially produce sulfur. And this sulfur would be needed for sulfuric acid eventually. And why hunt for ender pearls, when a fake enderman could be used to create free ender pearls, which is more free than smelting diamonds and shiny blue dust for the same thing. With deep mob learning now learned, this created 2 new problems. The steam turbines were getting absolutely destroyed by the energy cost of simulating blaze civilization. And I would need to automate the production of pulsating polymer clay, requiring chemistry, requiring more energy. This could only mean one thing. I would get the numismatic dynamo. Using the ender pearls from earlier, I triturated it and interpenetrated it with energetic alloys to fabricate the vibrant alloys but green. which was promptly thrown into the glorious blast furnace. This would then be bended into plates and plated onto gear smelted with the same thing, with a cherry on top, to cobble together the numismatic dynamo. Here's how it works. Rather than burning cane to boil steam for a measly 4,000 energy units per second, this new donut burns gemstones at a shocking rate to create 50,000 energy units per second. The only reason the costs are reasonable is that diamonds can also be easily automatically produced using deep mob learning, which once again needs pulsating polymer clay. But since I had non-negligible quantities of energy, I could begin the fabrication of this palpitating monomer object. Using the automatic quartz production I set up last episode, all I had to do was create some medium voltage batteries to be stored in medium voltage energy converters and medium battery buffers and set up the medium voltage power grid and place down a chemical reactor and fluid solidifier that melts ender pearls to be reacted with quartz for resonant hydrates, which is pumped into a furnace to be smelted into pulsating dust, which is alloyed with clay from the previous clay chain to finally create infinite pulsating polymer clay. With that out of the way, here was what the factory looked like now. Basically, I took a bunch of basic machines that each did one thing, and glued a bunch of them together, basically combining a bunch of basic machine operations together to add up to increasingly complicated processing chains, ending with advanced materials such as pulsating polymer clay. And the medium voltage power line was set up as part of the plan. Because when you give extra power to high-tier machines to do processes that need lower tiers of power, it creates overclocking. Anyways, I now had infinite pulsating polymer clay. But rather than transferring it all across the base to the diamond creator and diamond eater, I would simply move the DML section and power generation area closer to the clay area. I then did this insane magic trick. Different pipes can be put in the same block, so energy and items could be transferred at the same time. The diamonds created were then diamond napped into the generator. The only thing left to do was to expand to make a second set of mob simulators so I could also simulate Enderman civilization at the same time, to create infinite ender pearls, which would be fed back into this area to help create even more polymer clay. But polymer clay is not the only single use for everything, because further analysis reveals that diamonds are made out of carbon, which everybody knew, and this carbon can be extracted by instantaneously powdering diamonds and dumping them in the electrolysis chamber, for 16 carbon, which is basically a free coal source for making steel. And ender pearls will be used to make even more vibrant alloys, which can be used to upgrade electrical cables. With this, I no longer had to worry about catastrophic power failure. And since I was planning to mass-produce MV equipment the same way I did for low voltage, I would need some severe resource production improvements. So while I was talking endlessly about pulsating polymer clay, I had made some other developments. This giant orange cube, known as the steam grinder, was created using several articles of bronze and haphazardly forged together and then haphazardly built together and plugged into a steam generator to activate it. The way it works is that it consumes steam to spin an imaginary grinding apparatus to grind 8 objects at once, far superior to the low-voltage macerator. And this will be used mainly to create a humorous amount of crushed ores, which is the first step in GregTech's preposterously realistic ore processing. And as you may remember from episode 2, the crushed ores will be needed for rare elemental byproducts to be injected for even more tier 2 circuits. And this whole time I was blast furnacing this whole time, getting aluminum the entire time, and I now had enough aluminum ingots to commence the plan from 20 seconds ago. The good news is that the MV machine parts are basically made the same way as in low voltage, just with different and expensiver materials, such as magnetic steel, copper cables, and the infamous aluminum, which I combined together successfully. Now it was time to create a few more MV machines, for making realistic CPU and random access memory for high-voltage circuits later on. If only it were that simple. Because first I needed the advanced electrolyzer and advanced mixer and basic sifting machine. All because the cutter needed this minor complication known as the vanadium steel buzzsaw. The detour is summarized by sifting through crushed rubies and crushed emeralds for these gems, with the emerald being injected to make MV emitter to be injected into the laser engraver. And the rubies were electrolyzed in an advanced way for chrome, which is mixed in an advanced way for vanadium steel, which is blast smelted. Anyways, after that detour I finally got the world-renowned advanced cutter. With these machines, it is time to begin Greg Tech Electronics production. It all begins with the silicon bowl I created in episode 2. The first step is slicing the silicon bowl for scrumptious silicon wafers, which can be engraved using shiny lenses to create a specialized wafer, which is cut once again into usable computer parts, which will be needed for high-voltage circuits eventually, aka electronic circuits. If only it was that simple. Because I needed realistic plastic for these realistic electronic circuits. And this realistic plastic is known as polyethylene, created from various realistic chemical reactions and tasty sulfuric acid. So without further ado, it was time to do something. Plastic can be made using the good old-fashioned oil cracking, oil distilling, oil reacting oil method. But GregTech studies show that sugar can be turned into plastic using chemistry. And since I already had infinite sugar cane, I decided to do the sugar cane method. So I created multitudinous advanced chemical reactors and similar objects, which were immediately deployed. When sugar cane is dipped in water and left to rot, it creates mysterious green liquid, which contains several other mysterious chemicals that are probably not safe to ingest, including ethanol, which is obtained in a distillery. On the other hand, sulfur from the blaze simulation is oxidized and moisturized to give sulfuric acid. Once sulfuric acid and ethanol come into contact, ethylene is born, which can be contacted with oxygen to create polyethylene, which is solidified into scrumptious plastic. Due to some of these processes needing different voltages, this entire chain was split between different power continents, with cables and pipes going everywhere and over each other and into everywhere. And due to how many machines were running at once, each machine was fighting for energy, usually ending with semi-disastrous lack of free thermodynamic work. And the final addition was a rather extensive item pipe dragging all the sugar cane from here to the machine that dips sugar cane in water, making the entire plastic process automatic. So with the automatic plastic and somewhat automatic electronics, I could theoretically reach the next tier of gaming. High voltage gaming. Opening a whole new online GregTech world, leading to losing all motivation to interact with the real world, which will be covered in the next episode. For anyone who wishes to join the GregTech cult following, check the description to enter an escapable rabbit hole. And shout out to the channel members from the past.